Caste is an Indian cultural identity. It's what you're born into, how you're perceived in society. Many from the lower castes experience discrimination. At its worst in India, it turns violent. But it's being felt here in Britain too. We're hearing reports of harassment and abuse in schools, places of worship and in employment. Harry, not his real name, doesn't want to be identified. He came to Britain to work as an NHS doctor and had a good relationship with his boss, also British Indian, until she found out he came from a low caste background.
And as soon as I said that, she just got up from the table and dissolved that meeting. It was very abrupt, and I was very shocked, because I've never thought of my caste will come from India for 5,000 miles to UK. So it was very, very shocked for me.
Harry says she tried to force him out of his job. He went to a tribunal and won his case. But he believes there's not enough legal protection for people in the same situation. Campaigners suggest caste discrimination affects up to 200,000 people in the UK, mainly in Hindu but also some Sikh communities.
I personally face caste discrimination.
Rajinder Ratu grew up in Birmingham and says he's experienced it most of his life.
The old generation, when they first arrived here, they didn't face as much caste discrimination because they were new to a country and everyone had to work together to survive. But over the years, as particular communities have grown and developed, both economically and socially and even politically, you've seen the mindset of caste discrimination re-emerging itself into British society.
And many believe the way to change that mindset is through legislation, as has happened with disability and gay rights. But that's become politically explosive in some British Indian communities. And there was proof of just how political the issue of caste has become during this year's general election. Leaflets were handed out here in Harrow in North London, urging people to vote Conservative so that legislation outlawing caste discrimination could be blocked. In the week of polling day, at the height of campaigning, a leaflet supporting the Conservative candidate appeared on the streets of Harrow, controversially suggesting caste discrimination laws would threaten religious traditions, and only the Tories would stop such a bill going through Parliament. Many found the leaflets offensive, so we asked the organisation responsible for an interview. They put us in touch with this academic, who says he's sceptical of caste discrimination and believes it's a Christian-led campaign to attack India. Who's behind driving this agenda?
Well, if you look at the main organisations which are lobbying for the legislation, you see that there are close linkages between the Dalit organisations who argue for the legislation and the churches, in fact, throughout Europe.
But the former Labour candidate of Hindu background herself is appalled at these arguments. She accuses the Conservatives of being complicit in gutter politics.
I think it's been quite blasé and actually quite dangerous. This is the worst of the politics of the subcontinent being brought over to Britain. And the fact that they're not condemning it, that they've got sitting MPs saying this is an acceptable way to campaign, is unacceptable. And they're bringing that over here and using that as a tool to gain more votes.
The Tory candidate who won Harrow East rejects that and believes no legislation is required because caste discrimination doesn't exist in this country. You don't condemn these leaflets then?
No, I don't condemn those leaflets at all. I mean, this was an organisation that wanted to inform the Hindu community about how the different candidates stood for the election, what they had to say about the issue of caste discrimination. I was very firm, I gave my answers very clearly, and it's then up to the individuals that putting out to inform the electorate of where people stood on those particular issues.
Clearly the curse of caste doesn't plague the UK in the same way it does India. But with Modi's visit, protesters made it clear. They want an end to rapes, murders and attacks in India and want caste discrimination here to also be addressed more seriously.